team for the best job you've been doing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our new other guest today is Mr. Stephen Asimwe. Stephen Asimwe is a Pan-Africanist and also the RDC for Gomba district. You're very welcome, Ndugu Asimwe.
Thank you, Mr. Jagenda. I'm glad to be on this show, and welcome also my sister who is in Ethiopia.
Thank you.
And you know we have attachment, we as the Pan-Africans on the Ethiopia.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And of course, Ndugu Mtuta.
Yes.
Yes,
welcome guests and good morning our viewers watching us from across the country and the globe. It's a good morning.
Akol?
Yes, morning viewers. I must say that Eid is still on because Tanzania actually Eid is today.
Tanzania is celebrating theirs today.
Even in some countries, Eid is celebrated 2 days or 3 or a week.
In South Sudan, it started on Wednesday and it's continuing until Sunday.
We are still within Eid.
Yes, South Sudan actually issued a circular, their Ministry of, I think, Culture, and said Eid starts Sunday, 12th until, 13th, rather Wednesday 12th until Sunday. I saw in South Sudan, they are continuing with Eid. In Tanzania, there's actually today that they are celebrating Eid.
Tomorrow they are 2 days. In Zanzibar, actually, also they have a week.
In Zanzibar, it continues until Sunday, maybe. Well, thank you so much, and we just want to wish all of you the best of Eid as we continue. I'll start with Mama Rebecca Mugotengo, and we're just going to look into what we had here on our Wednesday. By the grace of God, we had quite a number of visiting heads of states, and we also had representation from different countries, and in total we had about 35 countries of the world that were here for President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni's swearing-in ceremony that we all witnessed on the 12th of May on Wednesday at the Independence Grounds in Kololo. Now we had visiting heads of states from Africa, and we also had representatives from the other countries in Africa and of course beyond Africa. We want to look into President Museveni's speech and making meaning of the Pan-African credentials of what we saw on that day, and of course what we also had the President speak to us just right there. Mama Rebecca, happy to have you here, and first and foremost, very congratulations that your host president was here, and the chairperson of the AU also was here. Why you see it. Let's just start with that, and how you feel that you successfully hosted them in your country and they went back safely.
Thank you, Mr. Jagenda. I felt like we were honored, and I felt that President Museveni is still believed in. Across the continent and beyond. One, I would like to tell you that the whole of Africa was here. One, we had the chair of the union, His Excellency Felix Sekedi, who is the president of DRC. We had my host president, who also hosts the African Union headquarters, the president of Ethiopia. To me, that is very important. We had the chair of the African Union Commission that runs the union affairs day to day, and that is His Excellency Mohamed Faki. We had two representatives from the Permanent Representatives Committee who came with their presidents. That's like our parliament.
Okay.
The PRA, African Union of Guinea, and the PRA of Gabon. To me, that concludes the African Union. Besides the presidents who came, but African Union endorsed our president. Okay. And for me, that's very important. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, like you said, virtually the entire African Union was actually here, which I think is a very important and good thing for us to. Ndugu Asimwe, let me get to you about the Pan-Africanism, of course, that we exhibited here on Wednesday when we celebrated President Museveni's swearing-in ceremony.
Yeah, I just want to thank you and my senior, the ambassador. You know very well that this month is the month we remember the creation of the OAU. Every 25th May, it is the African Liberation Day. And this is the month. And for us to swear in this month and bring such magnitude of dignitaries was actually trying to now solidify the solidarity of the African people. And when you look at what the president was talking about, the Pan-Africanism spirit, really, on that day you would see it growing. And when we had also river on the Ethiopia, we had the president of Ghana, and you know Ghana with Nkrumah and other people, even when he talked about the president from Sekou Toure's home. So you find that really it was the Pan-Africanism at work. And river on these other things that came into where, you know, Ugandans, where you need to educate them on many things. But what the president talked about, which I think, I have forgotten the French word, but for you, I think you still remember it. I think dormir something, meaning sleeping. I think that day we were awakening the people to show them that if we get this solidarity, like he talked about to Libya and others, this solidarity can help us create market, security, and even transform our economies. And I think that day was very important. And for me, where I work in a district, I find that word very, very serious. Issues of kurambara, issues of ideological clarity, issues of people waking up. And you could see that all these heads of state, they would see that really if we came together, we can do much. Even we can first create our internal market. So that what we produce is internally consumed. You are talking about milk, you are talking about coffee, you are talking about what. But if you take, for example, how many Ugandans consume milk, if you get to the surplus. So all those issues were really fully. And when he talked about imperialism, and you know some people take it rightly, they think colonialism left. No, even up to now, in this studio, there is some sort of colonialism. Because if you started, if Honorable Tengo, Her Excellency, started speaking Rangi, and I start Runyankore, we may not connect. But now, even issues of language, issues of national ethos, issues of national psyche, and you would see that really the president was. And you saw me, what I got surprised is that even when the French person was interpreting, he would do it wrong, and the president says, no, 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 no. Here it is supposed to be like this. So you would see that somebody who has mastered the language, the nation, the continent, and the world. Then population sizes, you talk about South America, you are talking about America, it's talking, actually was showing you that unless you come together, you cannot fight. These enemies, you know, they pass through many types. And some of you have been in the media, I think you have seen it. For us who are in those local districts, you would see people say, you are not going to swear. And I think now, like Chinua Achebe really wrote in his book, when a house has collapsed, you don't ask where the roof is. I think after swearing, you can now, social media, you can see now, people have changed even the talk. You get me? Because the idea was, you are not going to be sworn in. Nobody will come. Because there were people trying to struggle to that. Nobody will come. Then they brought in the issue of COVID. You get me? That you have 4,000. So they were bringing so many things. But for us, I think like the Bible says, we kept our faith, went there, observed the SOPs, the dignitaries came, like my sister here, and they saw that the function went on colorfully and ended. So for us, I think, like the Chinese say, the journey for 5 years has started. So, kazi endele.
Asante. Ako, let me come to you. You were on duty that day. You followed the president's speech. You followed everything as it continued happening at Kololo. You were part of virtually everything as it played out and worked out. And of course, after that, like Asima here says, there were all talks over this will not happen, this will not happen, this will not happen, this will not happen. Now, finally, everything happened. Somebody said, I want it to rain that day, and see President Museveni swearing in an umbrella, and I'll know that this is really a rigged election because the umbrella is somebody's symbol. But by the grace of God, it didn't rain. and he took oath of office just like that, without but even umbrellas have been here. Because I was actually looking into the archives, and I was seeing the president inspecting guard of honor, I think in 1988 or so, in an umbrella in 1988. Now the one now who owns the umbrella today was, I think, only a few years old, but the umbrellas were here. But right from the rhetorics and the drama in it, let's get to the credentials of Pan-Africanism, because we are too preoccupied Pan-Africanism, and some people actually castigating the president for thinking too African and forgetting Uganda. Let's start with that.
Well, I must say that whoever was really daydreaming that swearing wouldn't take place, I think on Wednesday was a moment of truth, of reality for them. I understand we have witnessed some presidents swearing in at midnight. We were with him in Kenya when in 2007 when somebody was sworn in at night, and so ideally I think it's that is as a result of ignorance, that it is just for formality that maybe here in Uganda we call such a big gathering, but an inauguration can be done anywhere as long as the Chief Justice is there. So it's not really, people should be educated on that. That perhaps it's just like a wedding. I may decide to do a wedding privately. I may decide to have it in the open. But away from that, President Museveni since 1994 has been the patron of the global Pan-African movement. And swearing in, actually, he was really stamping that, exhibiting that look here, I'm the patron. And he also, because like Napoleon, or like Tomboy used to say that a country without a history, or a people without a history, is like a face without a nose. That is why whenever he was introducing president, he was introducing them by the founding fathers of their nations, to show them, to tell us the story, the African story, that we are here because there are particular people who sacrificed for this. And I was very much impressed when actually the way he introduced Comrade Conde, the president of Guinea, Conakry. You know, in the 1960s, when Kwame Nkrumah was overthrown, he actually spent the rest of his time in Guinea, Conakry. And Sako Toure, when Sako Toure, when he was receiving Nkrumah in Conakry after his overthrow, after the coup, he declared him the co-president. Actually, I think Nkrumah was, by the time he died, he was president of Ghana and co-president of Guinea Conakry. So I think that is some history that was what we need to understand. So, and that even when he passed on later, Nkrumah, it was because Guinea was saying, look, yes, whereas he has been a co-president here, but he comes from Ghana, and the negotiations were done at that level, and Nkrumah was taken back and given a state burial that is in Nkrofu, that is his home area. So this is something that comes out that we need to understand, that African comradeship. Now, the other aspect that really came out here clearly, the Pan-African aspect, is his use of the African languages, use of Kiswahili, and also using Luganda here for us Ugandans. Though, of course, it's not a language that crosses, but at least we can say it is the major, it's the major language of wider communication in Uganda, which it is another fact. But also, you would see he would blend his speech with the Luo words, implying that he appreciates our linguistic diversity in the country. Now, lastly, the presence of Tshisekedi, the presence of Uhuru Kenyatta, because Tshisekedi is the chair of the African Union, and Uhuru Kenyatta is the chair of the EAC. So showing that really both the continent and the region, they are really supporting him as not only a senior president in the region, but as a Pan-African, they can always rely on as and when matters of defending the continent arise and are concerned.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ndugu Mtuta, coming to you, you listened to the president. I was with you in Kololo, and the president was very astute in his words, very strong, and you know, very strong-hearted in his speech, the way he was delivering it. Many people think he over-concentrated on issues of Africa and negating Uganda, because he finally said, when he was ending his speech, he said, now back to Uganda. And to some people, they actually thought, why did he have to concentrate so much on Africa and just giving Uganda very little in there? What did that have to mean? Talk so much about Africa and the rest of the continent and just get into Uganda finally?
I think it's the same problem or approach that the African founding fathers had, including Nkrumah. Because I think most of the opposition in his country was looking at him as a person who is more concerned about Africa, but not his home country. And then the other problem was that when you look even at Lumumba,
Patrice Lumumba,
yeah, it was also
Emily
the same
Lumumba.
issue was accused of. Even as there were struggles back in the country. In fact, I think one of the countries he last visited before he was killed was Uganda. He came to Uganda to look for support after visiting Russia and after falling out with the Americans, because he was looking at an African country to have a state of the countries of Africa forming a state. That is when progress would be achieved. So President Museveni is also looking at Uganda as a unit. But when you are talking about the numbers, the population, the market, Uganda is not going to thrive if we are not going to be in the cooperation with other countries. What we are producing, we are not going to. Remember, we had an issue with maize here. We already have maize which we cannot eat, but we need someone, our neighbor, our brother, to make use of it. So if we are talking about the African market, if we are talking about African solidarity, then Uganda cannot do much on its own. So I think the president's focus on the bigger picture of Africa is the survival for the African people, but also for the African democracies. Of course, he gave a history of the Latin Americas.
Hold it there. I have the president's speech here, and I will love all of you to actually make sense of some of the statements in President Museveni's speech, and actually wanted to just engage Honorable Muge here on the same. Now, on page 12 of his speech says, this is the moment Ugandans and the Africans need to answer the questions, or the question, and the question is, in quote, is this a generation of African leaders determined to build a Latin America in Africa or United States of Africa in Africa? I want all of you to help me understand this particular statement. It's on page 12 of his speech. For those who had an opportunity to get the booklet that he has. Talk about that, and I want Mama Rebecca here to also get to me over the same. This particular statement. Is this the generation of African leaders determined to build a Latin America in Africa or United States of Africa in Africa?
Yeah. Yeah, because you are looking at the Latin Americas. There are many countries, and they're very, very powerful, by the way, very, very, very rich. But because of the disorganization, you cannot survive alone in a global economy today. You need alliances. You need to, and that is why President Museveni has been, no wonder Uganda is we discussed last time, is leading when it comes to issues of cooperation of the East African cooperation, because I think because of the leadership that we have, that the president is looking at the wider picture of this continent, the wider picture of the African people. I remember in one of the statements he tickled my mind about, and this is something I've been asking, why are black people suffering in Africa first? Why are they suffering in America? Why are they suffering in Europe? Why are they suffering wherever they have gone? What is the problem? Is it because they are black, or is there some other reason? So I think the survival of the black people is going to survive, I mean, to bench majorly on the leadership back in Africa.
Okay.
And like the president said, if our voice is not going to be heard, if we are not Africans going to be taken seriously, then we are going to be taken a ride for another, I don't know how many years. But now it's the time that the African people need to sit together and agree on what is good for Africa and how Africa can survive even with the issues that we have, even with the oppression that the African people are suffering, both at home and wherever they have been. So I think that is why the problem is not Uganda, the problem is not Kenya, the problem is not Tanzania. The problem is how can the African people, the African continent thrive, given the current circumstances. We have resources, we have all of that. In fact, the population, I think Africa is now the biggest in terms of population, even in size. But the problem is the leadership. Now, if we don't have the focused leaders, the type of President Museveni, then our people, both home and outside home, will continue suffering. Mama
Muge, isn't the dream of a United States of Africa a dream far from reality that President Museveni is talking about here, or we will stay as the different fragmented countries of the Latin Americas?
Let me just begin by saying that the president has been very consistent. And probably I should walk you back to say that he talks about the survival of the black race.
Yes.
And in a very strategic manner. Probably at the level of the African Union, you should know that he's a champion of integration. And he has been mandated by the summit of the heads of state and government for him to take that lead. And he takes it very seriously. He talks not only about the political integration, but he also talks about the economic integration. And that is where he thinks we can position ourselves globally, and you are listened to. If you have something in your hands, you have your wealth, and you are together. And the president, on that, probably I would say that beyond our forefather Nkrumah, the presence of the president of Ghana here was also very fundamental.
President Nana Akufo-Addo.
Because they now host the headquarters of the African Continental Free Trade Area, where President Museveni has worked so hard to make sure that Africans really come together in the area of economic integration. May I also tell you that recently he got an award on the role he played for us to realize the African Continental Free Trade Area. Secondly, you may have noticed that we had the executive secretary of IGAD. And IGAD has played a very big role under the umbrella of African Union on the peace and security, regional peace and security. And it talks about African solution for African problems. You may have heard him speak about what we did in AMISOM and the support we gave as what we call the TCCs, or the troops contributing countries, and we offered the solution. May I also say that the president is very critical, because when he asks that, what would we like to be? At the level of our presence at the UN Security Council, still his colleagues, the heads of state and government, has mandated him amongst the 10 heads of state and government to look into the reform of the UN Security Council. They call them Committee of 10 or C10. And we are saying that most of the items on the agenda of the UN Security Council is on Africa, but we don't have a permanent seat, and we don't, even the rotational seat that they give the regions, we don't have a veto power at any. Probably I would also let you know that because he feels that we must develop as Africa and in an integrated manner, He has also been mandated to be amongst the 15 plus 5, 20 heads of state and government on what they call the Heads of State and Government Orientation Committee of NEPAD, now we call AUDA, which is African Union Development Agency. They are going to have their summit and their meeting on 25th. And it says, even in connectivity of our infrastructure, that we are able to probably, if there is deficiency in Uganda and we have surplus in Ghana, it should move and reach here in the most easier way, so that we integrate and connect both the, let me talk about the rail, the road, the water, and the air transport. Yeah. And that is exactly what President Yoweri Museveni is saying. So it poses a question, because we have a generation which must understand where they are moving. He did not leave out Uganda, but he believes that Uganda, as a member state of the African Union, is a building block to the success of Africa. And also the same with the regional economic communities that we have 8, amongst them ESC and IGAD. ESC is not looking at Uganda in a narrow sense. Uganda is only successful when the whole continent is successful. So, you know, the president says that our elders, the traditional leaders, maybe made some mistakes. But you remember he also says that when Africa was mapped out, it took these people another 300 years to come back and colonize us, because we were not organized. But that time they were working to find out what we had, the waters, the minerals, and the rest. But now, plus the slave. This generation is asking, can hand over Africa on a laptop, because yes.
a laptop is even a bigger thing.
Yes, it's
on
bigger
a smartphone.
Yes.
They
can through the smartphone know all our minerals, where they are, and how you can access. They can be taught how to disorganize their own country. They can be taught how to make sure that everything is siphoned out without anybody realizing. So he's asking, do you have to be a Southern American, or you have to be the United States of America? And for me, I chose the latter.
Okay. Asima, let me hear your thoughts on President Museveni's quotation in there that I read from his speech on page 12.
That question was very, very direct. And that's why you need to construct a paradigm shift and build a cadreship to understand these things. One, the Latin America and USA. When you look at USA, 1776 independence, but all the states were not yet united. So you needed people like the father of American Constitution, James Madison, who said in his paper Federation 10 that we can survive in a bigger republic than in smaller units. Yes. You get me? A bigger republic meaning that if you have the United States of America, you are better off. But for us here, you see, the example the President Museveni normally gives of pygmies. If you are a pygmy and you are standing on this attitude, it just gives you a height, but still the name is you are a pygmy. So when we tell these Ugandans that some of us really are pygmies, but trying to pretend to be very tall. So he's telling you that in a larger republic you can survive. There are many things in the larger republic. And when I was also writing my things on the champion of the federation, a federation gives you many things. You get me? For example, you are talking about language. You are talking about these issues of religion, tribe. Now, these tribes, Honorable Otengo here knows, if you go to the north, you will continue up to Sudan. If you are in our place in Western, you will continue up to the Bahia in Tanzania and other areas. Actually, like people like you may think you are like from another country. Now, but Ugandans like those things. And do you know why? People are so tribal and more, sometimes some of them are even more religious than God, is because these things help them for political areas. If you are very weak in a constituency, you say, we, the Bachiga are being threatened, we, the Bakonjo, we, the Banyankore, because that one gives you a higher what? This attitude. So I think that thing of the question was to ask them, where are you? You have, for example, you look at the budget, the GDP per capita. The GDP per capita of the whole continent by 2019 was $2.75 trillion US dollars. Only France has 2.85.
So one France is bigger than the rest of all of us.
If we went to the research, you might find there are many countries in Africa who have no GDP than that of Manchester United, which we all every weekend gets sweat.
We even fight,
a fight
to support people we do not know.
So the manager of Manchester United has
can finance a village in Uganda.
Now, when you see all our districts, like now I work in Gomba, you can. The other day I was talking to the chairman, LC5, Mr. Chiviri, Geoffrey. I said, you are here watching football and other people, but do you know that from Mpiji up to Zimbabwe, one Ronaldo can pay you for a whole year without looking, giving aside allowance, only jumping 90 minutes, and you are here. So we need to make sure that this thing of this question, we take it big. And do you know why it has taken time? In 1963, when they were forming OAU, there was a group called Casablanca Group and Monrovia Group. One led by Nyerere, another one led by Nkrumah. And one group, like Senior Honorable Tengo has said, was saying, why don't we unite now? Another group was saying, no, let us go into the process of integrating SADC, Maghreb, East Africa, so that finally we get the whole of Africa. And you can see even in Latin America, there are countries which are still very poor. Why? Because these Americans from 1776 after their constitution, they knew it. And this thing he was talking about, teaching you about democracy. No way. Actually, until recently in America, that's when the women were allowed to vote, the right to franchise. From the Nebraska Treaty, the blacks, the black race is talking about, were not allowed to vote. And in America, not every citizen votes for a president. You know that. So people will come here through, my friend here, through their organization. I don't know whether they call it Evil Society or Civil Society. Then they will say, then they talk about longevity. You get me? But let me tell you, you go across and you saw Suhuru. Nyerere, by the time Tanzania got united, he had to keep the people, and you see Zanzibar and the mainland. But you see the man had to move all these frontline states. It was a theater. And you see why the president has this experience. And I want to tell the readers who are watching us, the president had mastered the continent from Mozambique, Dar es Salaam University, and then Uganda. But you find some of us, moderator, Jagenda. You are born in Mbarara, in my village in Biharwe, you study from Biharwe, you marry from Biharwe, you become a Biharweist. So you become Roko. You can even be a Rokast. So you have become, so when they are talking about issues of integration, issues of Pan-Africanism, issues of a Raja Republic, is not part of you. For you, you are really. And that's why the biggest challenge now of the national resistance movement is to widen the base of cadres.
Somebody may think, Ndogwa same way, that we were possibly trying to bite something bigger than that we can chew. We're still grappling with the issues of the region, the East African region, and now we're thinking Africa. Mama Rebecca Muge here talked about the 8 regional blocks, and you notice very well that of the 8 regional economic blocks, East Africa is actually ahead of all the others. And just look at it now, East Africa is ahead of all the other regional blocks that you talk about here. But yet again, even at regional level here, we are failing to federate or integrate and do all these things. We're trying to grapple with this. Now, if we're failing here, how is it possible that we will manage to bring the entire Africa together?
In the region, like they explained, my colleague here, about the leaders, you know, the challenge also we have got is this issue of where people want to become very big. Actually, Nyerere again said, I'd rather be a small fish in a big pond than being a big fish in a small pond. And what the president has done actually in part of democracy as one of the principles is the people can choose. Now the challenge we have, you hear people talking about parliament, district councils, but these are summary of the people we live with. Now what you need to do, like that group, that Krask group of 1960s, you saw the Lumumbas, the Sekutures, the Nyereres, the Nkrumahs. The moment you build that base, please, this is UBC. UBC cannot just grow unless it has a clear cadreship of management. And everything grows. Actually, the Americans say the buck stops at a leader. If a district has failed, if a ministry has failed, don't blame the building. It is the minister there. If it is the district, it is either the cow chairman or RDC. It can't be beyond that. If you find a town council dirty, you know that the town clerk in that town council is totally dirty. Okay. Because it's the one who collects tax and is the one who distributes. So don't blame the town. The towns you find in our district, see it's dirty. That is a summary of the leadership. And the moment that, because Uganda here, what was Uganda before 86? Actually, everybody was saying Uganda is unmanageable. We are the first country on the whole continent to export people. Why? Refugees. But now what about today? My sister here knows. Everybody is coming here. Why?
We are the biggest host again of the refugees.
Why? Because you can reverse the situation. The moment you have, you see, we have been teaching about ideology. Ideology is like food. You eat it. I know you are a good Christian. Do you know why the Catholics go on Sunday in church and the Adventists on Sabbath and the Muslims now every Friday? It is that ideology. You must. And when you get that ideology, if you don't have it, you will suffer from political malnutrition. Okay. And it widens in the region. Because if you go and read the Bible, Matthew 5:13, 14, why do you think we still have people who are saying, Tuina byokulya, naenge nkuba, etonyachi, how many times in a year? So you find ourselves going to Galatians chapter 3, verse 1. Why? Because we have read what we are supposed to do.
And done what we're not supposed to do.
Yes, because those people,
President Museveni, nobody recites the scripture.
And those people, when they come to us, they will pass through any other means she was talking about to penetrate us, and we remain the way we are. And then what they are talking about, you hear people arguing, they are donating it to you, but nobody asks you how much they store.
Okay.
Nobody asks. They keep on saying, and again, you can't go to a bank, Uganda, to get money unless you have the correct.
Let me hear from you on President Museveni's statement of a united Africa vis-a-vis a Latin American.
Well, you remember in 1958 at the All People's Conference in Accra, Ghana, when Nkrumah said that seek first the political kingdom and the rest shall follow. He also went ahead to say that Ghana's independence is meaningless if the rest of the continent is under actually colonialism. So instead of a few countries sitting in their comfort zone, and maybe the rest of Africa is having challenges, it's important that, as he talked about, that leaders should stop sleeping. It is time they realize that, yes, coming together is the way forward. I just want to, I've always brought this example of Zanzibar and Tanganyika. The Sheikh Abeid Karume and Nyerere, it took them 1 week to agree. And Tanganyika and Zanzibar are no more, and they gave birth to Tanzania. So these other processes of consulting people, actually the Zanzibar and Tanganyika, Tanzania has been operating as one country for a very long time without necessarily having the constitution changed. And they've been in that marriage. I think it's one of the longest unions we have in the world. So in Africa, I also have a feeling that that should be really the approach. That the approach where maybe we can get these 54 heads of states. We lock them in a room and say, all we want by the time you come out from that room is a union. You should have agreed who's playing which role where and how. I think that is the best thing to go.
Okay.
Because even you look at how when we went into multi-party, in Tanzania, that is around 1894, the whole country in a referendum voted against multipartism. But and Nyerere told them, look here, multipartism is the way to go. So that means if they had gone by what people wanted, up to now they would have no parties. Here in Uganda in 2000, you remember?
In 2000, we chose the movement system.
2000 and 2005.
Then in 2004-05 is when we went into
so
multipartism.
you realize that the movement system, still people did not want parties.
Okay.
Yes, so implying that in any process, leadership is very key. That if the leaders can come together, for us, the rest we are like a flag. You know, in Swahili they say bendera hufata upepo. The flag follows the wind. So for us, it's just like a flag. The ordinary person is just like the flag. So this goes up, and I was very happy that at least you saw most of the leaders from the countries that originally preached the unification of the continent were here with us. And we believe that it should not stop here. It should even continue to some leaders that were not present.
Honorable Mugem, I'll come to you now. Before I go to Mtuta, I'll come to you before we take a break and return. When I return, I'll come with Mtuta. I've had fellow diplomats, former diplomats in the country here say the castigating President Museveni's speech, saying he was too tough on the West, or the Western community, the international community, and the Western baby community, and more so that he's saying all these things, and yet we have a budget that is predominantly also funded by the foreigners. The toughness that he used into speaking on that day, they think we are in a jeopardized position. We getting to very tough times where the people that President Museveni is talking about might pull out their resources, and once they pull out their resources, then we will be off the life support machine. Let me hear your thoughts on that, especially now you as a diplomat, when you heard the president say, didn't it threaten or scare you diplomatically?
When the president speaks, he goes empirical. He has the facts and figures that he talks about, and he defends them. Secondly, as a diplomat, when they are dispersing us to different areas of our accreditation, they tell us to move there to protect, defend, and promote the interests and the image of my country. So my interest is paramount, but we should have mutual respect. One, there are things I can never do in Ethiopia. For example, however good I am in politics, you will not get me sitting in the meeting of the opposition in Ethiopia. Maybe I would also tell you that I can't comment because that's a sovereign matter. What happens is that the host country, through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, invites us and explains to us what's on. And in that meeting, or such meetings, we ask our questions. And those are very senior diplomats who are saying that. But I've also learned that if others know you're not patriotic, and they come to talk evil about your country, they may, at your face, pretend to respect you, but they do not respect you. I've learned that they respect people who have the countries at heart. And therefore, for me, I believe the president did not go out of tangent. He spoke and defended empirically. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. The discussion still ensures here on our Pan-African Friday, and for you who is just joining us here on UBC TV, with us in studios, of course, the usual Pan-African Friday team. We have visitors. Mama Rebecca Mugotengo is our ambassador in Ethiopia and Djibouti, and also Uganda's permanent representative at the African Union. And you also have another Pan-Africanist, Mr. Stephen Asimwe, who is also RDC in Gomba. They're trying to look into the credentials of Pan-Africanism and the Pan-African speech that President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni gave to the nation and to the world on Wednesday as he was swearing in for the Chisanja 2021-2026. We are live here on UBC TV. Our line to call is now on your screen, but that can only be in our next hour. When we take a break, we'll return shortly. And of course, thanking Cleveland Hill Day and Boarding Primary School for being with us. We'll take a short break and return, then continue with the conversation and the discussion. Good morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra. Sponsored by
Cleveland Hill Day and Boarding Primary School. The Lord is my shepherd.
Echa COVID-19 chijja kugwa. If we get vaccinated now, observe social distancing, wear masks properly, sanitize or wash our hands with soap and water regularly. Together we can defeat this enemy.
What does it mean to be closer together? It's taking the last bus home for a surprise visit. Closer together is strangers finding a connection. It's bringing home something much more than a box. It's the warmth of home, or the beginning of something new. There's magic in sharing the things that we love, because it's those things that bring us close together.
Experience 100% 4G speeds across Uganda with the Airtel 4G Pocket Wi-Fi available at 123,000 shillings. Only it comes with 15 GB free for 1 month. Visit the nearest Airtel shop, device selling shop, or Airtel online shop. www.airtel.co.ug/broadband-discover. Airtel, the smartphone network.
The Teacher Management Information System, TMIS, is one of the innovations the Ministry of Education and Sports has rolled out to have all teachers register online. This is in line with the spirit of the National Teacher Policy to professionalize the teaching profession and the Ministry's effort to collate teacher data in a single database for better teacher management. Join us as we host officials of the Ministry of Education and Sports to discuss the Teacher Management Information System. The show is sponsored by the United Nations Education, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, under the Norwegian Teacher Initiative in collaboration with the Ministry of Education and Sports. Coming soon on UBC.
Introducing Cleveland Hill Day and Boarding Primary School, located in Chebando, Chisalu-Salu, along Bukoto Roundabout, 2 kilometers from Kalere at the Northern Bypass on your way to Chisasi. This is a world-class standard school with the most qualified teachers that will turn your child into a world changer. We have a fully stocked library, a balanced diet for the children, a calm environment suitable for learning, and pocket-friendly school fees. Registration for P1 to P6 is ongoing, and second term is starting on 6th April 2021. Call us on 0774-950-277 or 0705-861-262 for more information. Cleveland Hill Day and Boarding Primary School. The Lord is my shepherd.
Pick of the day on UBC, brought to you by.
Their job is to keep you and me healthy and well. But sometimes they try in vain.
Was brought to you by.
We've cut and reduced our MTN Momo withdrawal rates. Now you can withdraw mobile money at the lowest rates. You also get MTN Central Points when you deposit, send, and withdraw MTN mobile money. Visit our Momo agents countrywide and withdraw mobile money at our reduced rates from 1st May 2021. Everywhere you go, MTN.
What does it mean to be closer together? It's taking the last bus home for a surprise visit. Closer together is strangers finding a connection. It's bringing home something much more than a box. It's the warmth of home, or the beginning of something new. There's magic in sharing the things that we love, because it's those things that bring us close together.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Sponsored by
Cleveland Hill Day and Boarding Primary School. The Lord is my shepherd.
Well, a very good morning and thank you so much for continuing with us here as we talk about a Pan-African Friday and, of course, looking into the Pan-African credentials of the speech that President Museveni gave on Wednesday as he was being sworn in for the Chisanja 2021-2026. And this is the Pan-African Friday. My name is Jagana Semakola Ziksoka, live on UBC TV. Now, the panel today in our studio involves two very important guests, the Honorable Rebecca Mugotengo, Uganda's ambassador to Ethiopia and Djibouti, and also a permanent representative to the African Union. And Stephen Asimwe also joining us. He's a Pan-Africanist and the RDC for Gomba District. And of course, the usual panelists on the Pan-African Friday. Ndugu Mtuta, I promised to start with you, coming back to the same. These issues of people saying, yes, President Museveni is talking about all the things about the West, but yet again, our lifeline. Are we safe? Are we sure that we will actually survive if they pulled away from us?
Korea, for example, in the 70s, South Korea was the leading country in receiving foreign aid in the world, but it was the poorest of the countries. Until Park, the president, had to turn the country around saying, no, I think we don't need this foreign aid too much if we are not. So they created a slogan that you cannot develop a country when the people themselves don't have the urge to develop themselves. No one is going to develop you if you don't have the mentality of developing yourself. You will say government to yambe, but if you are not helping the government to help you, then you are not even helping yourself. So it is true that each country, every country will need development partners, because like we said, you cannot develop alone. You need people to support you, to help you, so that you can develop. But that doesn't mean that they have to decide for you how to develop. Your trajectory as a development agenda has to be home-based, because then you know what you need to achieve and how to achieve it. You have the resources, you have the capabilities and the capacities that you can use to achieve what you want to achieve. And Uganda, like the ambassador was saying, I think it's one of the most lenient countries that people can come in and walk out after doing all what they have done. In many countries, you can't do that. But the other problem is the leadership. I'm talking about the opposition in Africa. I think it's a high time the opposition in Africa is also disciplined. For example, President Conde.
Conte Alpha.
There is Conte and Conde. This one is Conde. Yes, of Guinea. Was an opposition leader. He participated in 1993. He was thrashed. He went again in 1998. He was beaten. And again in 2010 is when he won. But he won in a rerun, beating President Conte. And he was the first elected president of that country. For me, if I were an opposition leader, that is a person I want. I should have come to Kololo to make friends with Conde, because he has gone through the opposition. He has been one of the longest opposition members, like we had in Zangara in Zimbabwe. But when you sit home, like we discussed last time, that if refusing to go to your brother's wedding because you don't like the woman, it doesn't stop the wedding.
Exactly, because you don't want your sister-in-law.
So the opposition in Africa, and this also, I think, is tactical, because most of these political parties that are being supported by some other people in Africa have been clustered. In Europe, for example, we have parties that are across the globe, the European area. We have the Greens in every country in Europe. We have the Democrats almost in every country. So it is easy to connect from one country to another, and it's easily to bring them together. You can have a political, even the DP in Uganda and the DP in Kenya, they don't have anything in common. No. Because the leadership,
apart from the name,
apart from the name, yes. So I would have had, I would be happy to see a NUP in Uganda with the NUP in Kenya. Say we have 3 seats in the Parliament of Kenya, or 20 seats in the Parliament of Kenya. We have 5 in the Parliament of Tanzania. We have 20 in the Parliament of Congo. That you'll see a growing democracy. But if we are not even going to move again away from our, and last time we talked here, I said, for me, if I were the one taking some of these decisions, I would say, to be a political party in Uganda, for example, you need to have the 2/3 support in all the districts of the country, so that you seem to present a national outlook. But if you are going to be a political party of a family, a political party of a religion, a political party of
actually, the elections, the Electoral Commission.
The Electoral Commission's Act.
Yes. You are supposed to go in those districts and get signatures. But I don't know where the people who support you on the signature end.
Exactly.
You end exactly, because Ova is nominated, actually gets about 98 districts, 98 districts of signatures.
So even when you have those signatures, do they pay you sign? Because they are no, you don't vote for the person you signed for. I'm happy I saw Mayambala in Kololo, although he was not recognized.
Actually, the interpretation is you need 100 signatures from every district of at least 98 districts. So that makes it 9,800 signatures.
Yes.
But you notice that Mayambala and all the others did not even get 1,000 votes at the end of the day.
Exactly.
So the issue is, where are the 9,000 that nominated you to go for nomination?
They reach the district, they call people like in a workshop. and pay them
some money.
to sign, and then after they come back to Kampala.
Yes, completely submitted.
So that also undermines our democratic credentials under development, because then people are going to be big chiefs in smaller clans, and then when these smaller clans finally fizzle out, even the big chiefs also disappear. In that case also, we lose leaders who would otherwise have joined the corridor of the national leaders, because they belong to some of the small groups. But at the same time, when you look at this issue of looking at Africa as a backward Africa, as an undemocratic Africa, as less educated, I was going through most of the agencies of the world, and I realized that when you talk of the UN, for example, when you talk of the people who are managing the health of this world, people who are handling the security of this world, the security systems, people who are looking at the financial institutions of this world, you find Africa has, I think, the biggest number in some of those agencies. So for people to think that Africa needs the support of the rest of the world in terms of financing and the rest, so that we can be able to thrive, is not true. President Museveni was talking about the issues of Gaddafi and how he had wished to mobilize the rest of Africa against the overthrow of Gaddafi. Of course, it is true that President Gaddafi, as a person, also had his own issues, the arrogance, which was also a problem with the rest of the African leaders. But also maybe he was also talking about, President Museveni was making calls to wrong people. Because you remember that South Africa was very hesitant when it came to support for Gaddafi. And actually, South Africa was one of the countries in Africa that endorsed the UN resolution of intervention in Libya. So I think the president was a bit cheated, talking to a person who was not very supportive of the idea. Otherwise, that would have happened. But until we learn the African Brotherhood, how we should support the African brothers to be able to sustain the development and the politics, because it is true that African leaders have issues, and the issues that African leaders are having are not independent of the total life of the African continent. What we do in our homes find a way into our lives in schools, in our institutions that we lead, and that is what is happening. But what we need is that support for each other in Africa. So that when we are talking about African issues, let the African Brotherhood work. If a leader in Uganda, and I'm realizing that I'm not agreeing with President Museveni on any issue, why can't I call in Kenyatta? Say, I'm not agreeing with the president on this issue, but you can come in and you help us. Let me call Tanzania. Why should I go to the rest of the capitals of the West to tell about this bad person? Of course, he's a bad person, but he's part of you. You're also a bad person. After all, you're all black. So
just hold it there on Twitter. You see the picture on screen there is the president of Ethiopia and the Honorable Mama Rebecca Mugotengo here. Now, do you know that most people did not know that the president of Ethiopia is actually a woman? And it surprises so many people when you say that now that's the president of...
let alone not knowing that Ethiopia has a president.
Exactly, because not so many even actually know that Ethiopia has a president. So it's a surprise when you tell them that the president there is actually a woman. But that's her when she visited a few days ago, coming here. Mama, thank you so much for ushering into the country your host president, just right there. Mututa, hold it there. Let me come to you. I'm reading a statement here on page 19 of President Museveni's speech, and it says, on the second and third paragraph, it says, I need to express my concern to the African brothers and sisters that are here today and those that are not here, that the situation in a number of points in Africa does not give credit to the African people. The security the security situations in Libya, Mali, Niger, some parts of Nigeria, Chad, Central African Republic, and some parts of Cameroon, Eastern Congo, Somalia, recently Northern Mozambique, etc., must be addressed and can be addressed. Must be addressed and can be addressed. Now, this also takes me to the theme of the African Union of silencing the guns. We know that if anybody wants to disorganize the continent of Africa, three things. Number one, you bring in guns. Number two, you bring votes. And number three, basically guns and votes. Once you get into guns, once you get into elections, then you are going to destabilize or disorganize the continent. Look at the security situation in these areas that President Museveni hinted about, and the theme of the African Union of silencing the guns. Do you think we are on the right trajectory before Mama Mugi comes in, because she's more positioned to talk to us about that? Welcome.
Yeah, when he says we must silence the guns, because he, like Mama Amoge did say, that the speech was empirical. He has done it here in Uganda. He has actually silenced the guns in the north, in the west, in the east. He has silenced the guns. So with that experience, therefore, it means that countries that are facing that particular challenge need to come here and benchmark, perhaps, and see how it was done. How was it done? Secondly, Somalia was a failed state, and here he was among the people saying, look here, we cannot look on, and now you have a government in Somalia. So my thinking is that the African people must come up with perhaps, let's say, like a standby force. Because what I know is that we have the Eastern Africa standby force. How I wish that it should be elevated to that level. ECOWAS has one, but I don't know why they have failed to stamp out the Boko Haram in Nigeria. And yet, Nigeria is the biggest contributor of troops to the standby force in West Africa. So I think this has always defeated my mind. Why exactly that a country that really contributes more of the troops, many troops to that standby force is actually failing in dealing with insurgency in their own country. Exactly. But again, going back to that, it goes about re-sensitizing the people, giving them that kind of orientation of who we are as the people, the threats that are facing us as Africans. Because now you find that what is so interesting and annoying is that an opposition leader in Africa, instead of perhaps building alliances with their fellow opposition leaders, they are building alliances with the West. They are actually becoming a sellout. Like I would like, for example, when I saw Right Honorable Amama Mbabazi.
Now, so you are saying the relationship now for them is like that of a rat and a cat.
What happened when you saw
when I saw Right Honorable Amama Mbabazi at the function, I think this gave us a gesture of reconciliation. Africans are known for being reconciliatory. This was the spirit we saw in Kenya, the handshake. Now Raila and Uhuru are friends. This is the same we saw in Tanzania. Lowassa and the late Magufuli came together. It's the same spirit we saw in Zimbabwe when we saw the late Mugabe and Shangarai coming together. Yeah. So this spirit has been on. In South Africa, when Mandela came on board, you see, he brought de Klerk closer. So that is the spirit that the opposition in most countries should embrace. And if the opposition in Africa is to play a critical role in the development of this continent, they should not think that when you dialogue with somebody in power, you are a sellout. For example, how did Tshisekedi come to power? It was through reconciling with the powers with the powers then. So the opposition in Uganda, like in any other African country, they should realize that once you are all political players, it does not hurt you. It does not reduce your status if you build bridges with people in government.
Yeah, I think the reconciliatory is also influenced. Because you see every disagreement on the continent, they want to go to Paris. You see, there is no way rats can disagree and the cat becomes the arbitrator. It can't be. And that's what we are talking about of aid. Aid you read the book of Professor Moyo, The Dead Aid. You read the book of Professor Standard, Trade is War. Those people cannot just give you aid. And after all, World Bank was not created to distribute Holy Communion. World Bank, that is its role. IMF, that is its role. Now, but when people want to argue in all these fora, they are going to stop giving you aid. So where will they put that money? You think they are just giving aid only? They are giving aid with something behind it. And they have terms and reference. Now, when you read that book of Professor Moyo, The Dead Aid, shows you that, and the good thing we are here with Honorable Babuga during the war in the north, how many NGOs were in Guru per capita? If they had 1,000 homes, you had 1,000 NGOs.
Every home had an NGO.
Yes.
To look after particular.
But what was the development? So the issue is some of them, they see them on the face value, but it is not there. Let me tell you, I have been in these districts. How can somebody come with 6 pickups to go and call the RDC or chairman LC5 to open a toilet of 600? You have 6 pickups and the chief guest is the RDC. It can't be. So that is a dead aid. Now each pickup costs how much? And do you know that those people are paid in dollars? So if they give you like 5 million, they end up repatriating 3. So it is like a job created somewhere abroad. So we should also know the politics of aid. You get me? And we should read widely. That's why I was telling you that the cadreship here need to understand. And every day these agitators in Uganda, when they would say they have stopped aid, you would hear embassy announcing that they have given you 600. Why do you think one side is saying they are stopping, another side is saying they have given you? It's because it is not likely to stop it.
Okay.
And let me tell you, if you went to Zimbabwe, they are very, very happy. Yes, we can be poor, like Stephen Biko said. I rather be
Stephen
poor.
Bantu Biko.
Yes, I rather be poor than being rich in
Captivity.
In captivity.
Mututa, come in here.
Recently, I was talking to a friend of mine who lives in California, and he was telling me that they're having issues. They're having a lot of street homeless people in America, and they need some kind of help to help them get people off the streets. Because, I mean, they're living in boxes like we have been seeing the rest of Africa. Now, you are talking of people who are promising us all that heaven. And, you know, we have been talking about this ambassador sometimes here. I'm one person who is very annoyed when I hear a boat capsizing on the high seas and the number of people dead.
As people are struggling to move out of Africa to go and find greener pasture somewhere else.
Somewhere else. And you're asking these people, where are you going? And what are you going to do? Do you have your grandmothers who have left there and grown potatoes for you to go and eat? So the determination with which these people are dying on the waters, can't we use the same determination to fight the bad conditions back at home that we can be able to survive as black people? I hear now Italy, which was one of the receiving countries, closing its borders and doesn't want any of them anymore going there. I know it is unfortunate that countries like now Libya, which has completely broken down, people have to survive. But it is, where are you running? I would rather wish to have many Libyans running to Egypt or coming down to Uganda, to Ethiopia, where they can be helped by fellow Africans. So I think it is also a high time that we learn that where we are going is even worse. I have seen people have been, last time I found some of our people from Ethiopia who are living in New York, 10 people in a small house, you're living like rats. Those who are working during the day, when they go, then the others can sleep. And those, when they come back, then those who are going to work at night are going to sleep. A man or woman has to work 10 jobs in a day so that you can have money to help you to pay for your bills.
Okay.
It's true there are people who have left this continent and gone out there and have
made in life.
Made in life. But the majority of our people are suffering. And these are the people who are being killed by police on the streets. And no one is talking about it. Is it because Africans were not going to some of these embassies to demonstrate when they kill our people? Do they think we don't have the feelings?
And they're good at going to embassies to demonstrate about their own governments back home, and even do not know how they got there. Mama, coming on this particular one, he's been talking about Professor Moyo's book quite often, and I'm also drawing to the attention of another book by Paul Kulia, which talks about wars, guns, and votes. And it's a book I was alluding to here, that when you want to disorganize the continent of Africa, first of all, it's a war-ridden continent. Get to elections, we are now peaceful. That's why President Museveni had to emphasize in Kololo that elections are over. Because when we get into elections, there is a demon that sits on our heads and it disorganizes us and it gets us off balance. So once you have elections on the continent, you have wars, you have gun trade and all these things. And then we talk about silencing the guns, and these are some of the problems that we have. Mama, help us understand these things. President Museveni highlighted it in his speech here and saying the security situation, now that's the book I'm talking about, the security situation in the different parts of Africa really make it very hard for us to have a united Africa in a way.
Probably I would just draw your attention to the different pillars of what we call architecture at the African Union. There's what we call AGA, the African Governance Architecture, and then the Peace and Security Architecture. Under AGA, on behalf of Uganda, I chair the Committee on Refugees, Returnees, and IDPs. And then Uganda was for 7 straight years a member of Peace and Security Council of the African Union, until we moved out because it's supposed to be rotational. Countries like Nigeria under ECOWAS and South Africa under SADC have been made to be permanent members of the African Union Peace and Security Council by their regions. The region of Eastern Africa is heterogeneous. And it is the most difficult region to present a position as one. When we sit in a meeting, people begin thinking differently. You will have people saying they are islanders. There are those who will say probably they belong to both Eastern region, but they also belong to SADC. So they are their positions are skewed towards different regions. And therefore, if it was an homogeneous region, I think Uganda would qualify, and probably Ethiopia and Kenya, to be members of the African Union Peace and Security Council. In the recent reform, I now get to your question.
Yes.
The heads of state and government kind of moved and said that you cannot separate politics with peace and security. So the commissioner of, the previous commissioner of peace and security was only commissioner peace and security. But in this new arrangement is the political Affairs, Peace and Security Commissioner.
So politics has been incorporated into
yes,
the issues
because
of security.
When you get back, you realize that it all starts from the politics that you're talking about. You know, we are hosting so many refugees, so many.
Over 1.4 million
yes.
of those in the country.
And because of that, Uganda is one of the countries that has advocated for other approaches. Mediation, peace and security, reconciliation. And we've managed, although it remains fragile, but you've seen what happened, or is still happening in South Sudan, that President Salva Kiir and Vice President Riek Machar have now accepted to come together. I was actually nominated as one of the facilitators for that revitalized peace process. And for 3 years we were on that. It brings me back to Uganda. We don't have any problem. I've said it here, that we are blessed to have our elders, our historicals who participated in this revolution. The differences they have are very small. And I'm one person who has always advocated for them to come back, because they still have their commander-in-chief, the vision bearer. They know what they discussed, and they know where they wanted Uganda to be. So for me, I'm not only glad, but it gives me satisfaction that I see them coming back together, because it was just a difference in thinking that I think they didn't agree on the approach. But in these 5 years, I want to take the opportunity now to call, to plead with our historicals who are still living, that because of their small differences, we were almost going to slip into what we didn't understand. And the advantage, I always tell people that I believe in political competition, but what I hate is induced political competition. That some people induce competition.
As if it's not there. You just need to force it happen.
And now they want to use the young people, so that it is our young people that are able to carry on what they plan to do. So for me, like the president said, where it becomes difficult and they have to move to another country, we'll always receive them as refugees. They keep asking us that, why do Uganda take these refugees in the numbers? And I pick from my president. He said there are about 3 reasons. The first is humanity, which is even beyond Pan-Africanism. Every human being is important, Ubuntu. The second one is our history. We were once refugees. If we were not taken care of, probably, I tell people at the African Union that we had someone, President Amin, who was capable of concluding Uganda. If we were not supported by
like
others, he was going to wind it up. And then the third, the president says, no African should be homeless. I mean, in Africa. So it makes it different, and everybody wants to learn from us. So when the refugees are here, we should work out with their countries of origin that they get back. We should also find out if the forces are external and they need support for us to use a bit of force like we did in Hamiso. Then they should make sure that that is done. So for me, I think those who want to sell their guns also instigate insecurity, but sometimes in the most indecent manner. They pretend that they are supporting you, yet they are the ones passing behind, because back home these people must have their guns to be sold. I just want to conclude by saying that no one can blame the president of being undiplomatic. He's the chief diplomat of this country. And I would like to tell you that because of what he does, it is not only Uganda that has benefited, but the continent. And he gives respect to the people. But I also feel it should be respected, and our country must be respected. I don't think the president would be happy that because of confusion, the president of Chad is murdered, and we can't explain.
Exactly.
We
exactly.
can't
After an election.
Yes. And we moved in 2007 to Somalia. And when you hear our military giving the account, is that people had given up on Somalia. But now that there's a bit of peace, everybody wants to come in, and sometimes come in to destroy the little that we've done. Because if we don't look at the case of Somalia, well, the strides that we've made can easily slide back, and we lose out. We are now beginning to say that the troops contributing country, like the one of AMISOM, should not only be for the region. Why don't we have the troops contributing country of the Sahel and all that, so that we are able to sit and work together? It talked of the African Standby Force, which is being also doubted and resisted by others. And therefore, I would like to say that Africa must come together for us to silence the guns that are in Africa, so many in illegal hands and so on. We should begin by getting the root causes of the conflicts that we have. If they're internal, we are going to manage them. But if they're external, we should also speak to those who are externally inducing this conflict in Africa. And for me, I think the regional blocks still remain very important in the area of peace and security, and also looking at our organic democracy, not those that are also forced on us with different intentions. So I would say that the president is not happy and is right that you see Africans dying in numbers, not only within the continent, but also outside the continent. How do you run from the rich, resourced continents?
God endowed.
Yes. And then you run to a place that the same people are running to come and collect what you've left behind. We just need to get organized and change our moves as the people of Africa.
The number to call is on your screen. If you want to say anything or contribute anything, there's a number on screen to call. It's 0702 number 232425. You can call and ask a question, or just make a comment on what we're talking about here. The Pan-African Friday is on. Nduga Sima, I'll come to you. When we talk about Pan-Africanism, and of course, you could tell and see President Museveni's passion for a united Africa and for Pan-African, especially when he invoked the history of him and Zuma trying to come together, or asking to come together to salvage and help Brother Gaddafi. Even when he had his own mistakes and problems, they had put that aside and remember that Gaddafi is part of us as an African. Let's synergize and get forth. Now, you'll also notice that we on the continent have, of course, politics, like Mama here has been talking about it here. And much of our politics is also dominated by some other forces somewhere. And we've had these things where you saw in Tanzania, Tundu Lissu against the late now Dr. John Pombe Joseph Magufuli, who was believed even by the Tanzanians that this man is not pushing a Tanzanian agenda, he's pushing somebody's agenda. And you could tell. Now, you could see or tell of the same forces back home here, that this person is pushing somebody's agenda. Now, we're talking about a united Africa, we talk about Pan-Africanism. If we are nurturing and breeding leaders on the continent who do not exhibit the Pan-African spirit, but they being fronted by some other power somewhere, being fronted by some other persons. Now, this may not happen in Uganda, but it may happen in the other countries of the continent. Shall we be able to achieve the Pan-African dream if you have a president, Jagenda Semakola, who is not for Africa, but is pushing somebody's agenda? You have a president in Mututa who is not pushing the agenda of that country, but pushing somebody's agenda. Shall we be able to actually harmonize this? Because President Museveni is really thinking the generation of leaders that we have. Are we breeding leaders who want, we had talked about it earlier, a Latin America, or leaders who can actually push a united Africa?
Actually, what Ambassador was talking about, security and refugees. When you go to my friend here, Akor knows, the resolutions of the 7th Pan-African Congress, resolutions 13, 14, 17 on refugees. Actually, we had even refused to say these are refugees. Because some of these people who come from across, they speak the same language, the same customs,
We
the
even share
same
names.
nose, we share the names. So you find that it is because of that historical thing of the Berlin Conference of the borders. Now, when you go to Sudan, you see, you were talking about Machar and who?
Salva Kiir.
Yes, but the whole of our friends, our brothers in the north speak the same language. They don't need any interpreter.
The Macharas are an extension of people in northern Uganda.
Now, if you went to Chisoro and went to Rwanda, could you get
anything new or strange?
Now, you are Busia here and Busia. Actually, there is a time when you had Agure Awori standing for president and Mudi Awori, the vice president of Kenya. So we need to make sure that these young people...
Tony Jofrowana, in his home area in Amungura, in Busia, when he wakes up in the morning, he just goes to have breakfast. When he goes to have breakfast, he's actually in Kenya.
Yes.
He buys a kagati from Kenya, then he comes
So the challenge has been to look at how do we decolonize both our minds and the borders. The challenge, these rules we have put for refugees and what, and must especially, you look at the set of leaders in the region. Where was Mzee Kisekedi? Where was
Mzee Tshisekedi the late, Etienne Tshisekedi?
Etienne Tshisekedi. And even now the son, who is
Felix.
the president. So, and other leaders, you find you were a refugee, then you become a president. So we need to make sure that, we need to make sure that these people you are talking about, refugees, tomorrow, they are the heads of what? State. So ours was to make sure that these African brothers should not suffer when we are sick. And again, if you are talking about Ubuntu brotherhood, when we are talking about Pan-Africanism, you must show it in action and in the spirit. Look at people like Nkrumah. Do you know the wife of Nkrumah? Nkrumah didn't marry from Ghana. Egypt. Married from Egypt. What was it? There was Gamar
arranged marriage.
Abdul Nasser. So these young men who are in the university need to get that story. Nyerere had to put up a frontline state in Tanzania, and those people were passing. They can tell you, the Chikwetes and others who are still living, how they helped the frontline state, South Africa, Namibia, all that down. When you get Mnangagwa, whom you saw, His Excellency, and the story of Robert Mugabe, and the story of Rand, which you can see also disturbs us here. But those people, really, we cannot keep on that. And you see Uganda, if you look at the history, this man was talking about Tom Mboya, about what he said, a nation without history is like a face without a nose. Even Napoleon studied the history, reflect on it, it is the true philosophy. Now when they hear the president talk about history, they think he's wasting time. But let me tell you.
And they say
now,
never said that.
which church, recently were with East, which church does not talk about the death of Jesus?
No, but that's the crux of the matter itself. That's the premise for Christianity. Yes, if you take away the death of Jesus Christ, then there's no Christianity. That is the pillar for Christianity itself.
The president must give you a historical perspective to know where you are and where you have come from. So this Uganda, and when you are talking about the type of crops we used to grow, coffee, tobacco, and what?
Coffee, cotton, and
yes. And when we were told that those were only the cash crops, are they the same cash crops today? When you talk about kuzukuka, waking up, he's not talking about waking up of production and productivity. He's talking about even waking up ideologically. To know who is your enemy is very important. But some of us, because the way we are trained to speak English, of course use laptops, WhatsApp, and we think the world has ended. The world has not ended. The other time, actually, when he was speaking, said, we are now fighting the war of ideology. The Chinese, you remember what Deng Xiaoping told the Chinese? Go and think China will be well. Now, when you get this parliament, you will see the issues. What is the priority?
Okay.
When you get to your districts, what is the priority? So we need to enlarge the thinking, widen the gap, they will understand security. First of all, since 1986, do you know how many rebels have been around?
In this country?
In this country. Do you know how many people the president has reconciled meetings internally and externally? And also, don't think the West is also fresh. They know who is who. There was a book in 1990 something when they used to say who is who in Uganda. They also know who is who in the world.
In the world.
So, and when they are coming to confront us, they know whom are they confronting. So what we need to do, like this speech of the president on the inauguration of saying that we became hard on the West, but you become hard depending on what you have received. What are they saying also?
Okay. Ndugu Mtita, I'll come to you. Let me hear from Akol. Picking your mind on this one. When you look at the continent, during the COVID year, it was an election year, for example, where quite a number of countries there were going through an election amidst a pandemic. Uganda went through the election still through the pandemic, and as that very terrible year 2020 was coming to an end. And we talk about United Africa. Now, when you look at our African democracies, or our different election dates as they are set, do you think they actually help facilitate for Pan-Africanism as we talk about it here? We looking at Kenya, for example, next year there will be change of a leader. Tanzania had just got theirs towards the end of last year. Ghana has just had theirs towards the end of last year. We've just had one. Chad has just had one. Niger just had one. Now, there are countries, when we are just electing our presidents, they are ending terms or so, in a way. Do you look at the different election dates on the continent as those that can facilitate for this Pan-Africanism? Our time is running out, and I would just want to hear your comment in 2 minutes.
No, you see, when they talk about African unity, they don't talk about standardization of African approach to issues. Actually, African unity is about how do we harmonize our differences, and how do we turn our different approaches into our strength. I think that is the Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism is not that we shall be the same, we shall standardize everything. No, it's about harmonization. And that harmonization comes about if we come up with perhaps the lowest common multiple. What is our LOCM? What are the benchmarks that we need to use as and when we are approaching democracy? But also, lastly, I think the Muzungu's democracy in Africa is having issues. Okay. It is time maybe we also came up with an African democracy.
Customized for Africa.
Yes, domestic, have our own democracy.
And this is why President Museveni doesn't want to be lectured on democracy. Yes. Because yes, he says we've tailored this thing according to our people here. So don't teach us how to do these things.
Yeah, because ideally what is happening is that every other time, because the West, where they are, it took them years. I don't know why they feel that we should actually jump beyond exception and perfect it within a very short time.
You remember when there is a debate on this parliament, how people jumped on the chairs. But what happened in the America? You had to get the speaker, put the radio on a pickup.
when Trump was exiting.
Yes, and these are people who have built, and even for the first time in the history of America, to put a motion in the House to impeach a president who is already out.
Who's already outgoing.
It is on record. Now you can't be preaching here.
How things should be done. Okay.
But because you see for them,
yes,
better than us, they have people who speak very well about their things
than us.
Yes. Maybe
as you're concluding.
To conclude my point, I think that Africa should adopt the Ben Bella approach
of Algeria.
Yeah. Ben Bella of Algeria. There was a time when the African did not have a mouthpiece, did not have even a media house, and every time BBC, the West was giving negative stories from Africa. So I think we should also. This is the approach that African leaders should look at. That we should have a machinery that speaks for Africa, so that it can counter the negative propaganda, the the misrepresentation, the misinformation that is out there.
Yes, yes.
Now, this contracting pictures here. Yes, Mututa, your final submission before I come to Mama Muge.
Unfortunately, I think our democracy, even our founding fathers of this African continent, the Democrats were talking about, missed a point. The point they missed is that, and the unfortunate is that most of them were students in the Western institutions. And theirs was a struggle against the mistreatment they had gone through as students in the Western countries. So, they built democracy that they had been told in classrooms in the West. But that's why I think where we missed that a lot of our own was not included in the formation of this governance when we started. The ambassador was talking about especially issues of reconciliation in Africa. We have the best mode on how, when we agree with us brothers, or when we have disputes as communities in Africa, how we reconcile. To the extent that even when I have killed a person in Africa unintentionally, there was a way that, yes, reconciling that, and even that matter was paid for, but the problem was solved, which is not anywhere near the type of the systems that we have incorporated and plotted from the rest of the world. That still, I think Africa need to rethink about what makes us unique and what can make us stronger. The president was talking about the center of gravity. How we can also be a center of gravity in terms of the international political systems. We are running bipolar systems, tripolar systems, and unipolar systems. And in fact, he put something which I personally have been thinking about. Why are Africans told to either look west, or you support the east or the west, or no?
I am pro this, I am pro that.
No, we are not pro anyone. We are pro
we. Should be pro we, yes,
yeah.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, of course, our leaders have been pro someone. You are being supported by this bloc against this bloc because of oil back at home, or because of he talked of selling off guns, and who is going to sell you more guns than the other? Because we have had this in Libya, who has given more guns to each group so that they can also support them. But I think it's a high time that the African leaders need to sit down and sacrifice their egos.
Okay.
That we can. I don't need to be a president if my people are suffering, definitely. But I can be a president of people who are happy.
Okay.
So even without, because most of the problems we're having with the federation is that a person in the smaller ponds are saying, if I join the bigger sea,
I'll get lost in there. I'll get lost in there. Thank you, Ndugu Mututa. Mama Rebecca Mogotengo. Finally, before we get out of studios, we have about 5 minutes only. I want to hear your mind on the fight against COVID-19 because everybody had looked at the continent as we're waiting. Prophets of doom had actually predicted that we would die like cockroaches or mosquitoes or anything. And somehow, by the grace of God, the continent seems to have been saved from that. Let me hear your mind on the African approach to the fight against COVID-19, and that will be our parting shot.
Probably allow me to briefly, for a few seconds, pick up from what my colleague has said. One, do we really need to position ourselves differently? What we're about to have at the African Union that I think our heads of state and government should look at is now polarizing us using the Anglophone and Francophone. Then now the Arab League have also come in. So that if somebody feels that something is about to hit them, they will now separate part of the member states and say you are Francophones or you are Anglophones or you are Arab leagues, but it affects Africans. Secondly is, do we vote on the same day? I think there's something called lesson learned. I was honored to move with the observers from the African Union to meet the president in Rachtura 2 days after elections. So when they gave their report, they came out and said, but why doesn't he speak to everybody? Because they were really senior people, commissioners and people from different countries. But they felt they learned more instead of giving the president their position. They speak to everybody. Yes, one of them was a Biamakama of previously of Cameroon, and our commissioner for political affairs. But they say the president should speak more to everyone. And after every elections, every batches of elections we review. So I was invited before the Peace and Security Council because so many things were taking place. So they allowed me to present our position, what we went through, and I tie that now to COVID, that we had to respect the constitutional provision, yet there was also COVID. I would say that Uganda has been rated very highly on the fight against COVID-19. But we also lag behind because when it comes to technicalities, the things we are supposed to do, we don't do. We have what we call AMA. Uganda should have signed before the rest because Ugandan's brain is being thought at the African level, African Union and beyond. Africa Medicines Agency, but we've not signed. But I just want to give you this example. You can see from this, probably you can pull it, that when we came as delegates, first of all, we were tested. And we were not given the results, because if we were given the results, probably some people would go to NASA Road and print their own. And forge results. Yes, we were kept in the system, in the database. And then when we arrived, both your tag and the invitation letter was scanned. After scanning, this is what comes out to confirm that you are actually negative. That is at the entrance. Not everybody can do this. And for me, I think we've done a good job. So when the president said everybody here was tested, he wasn't just politicking. There's evidence. First of all, look at what you finally get. It goes by your fingerprints and everything, eventually, and you get this. Remember, when we were being accredited, everything was also done, and at the same time, you were being tested. So for me, I think COVID still lives. Maybe on a very sad note, I would tell you that one of our longest serving staff in the embassy, our accountant, who served us for almost 30 years, passed on. Because of COVID, succumbed to COVID. As I talk now, one of our drivers has lived in the ICU for 3 months. He can't breathe, he can't go home. 3 months in the ICU? Yes, we've had our local staff, fortunately the home-based staff, the foreign service officers have been careful. We've tested, they've been positive. But some of them just go along, they're taking their children to school and so on and so forth. We cannot vaccinate everybody, even if we wanted, we can't afford. People are keeping the patents to themselves, they're not giving. So I want to urge Ugandans that if you have a country like Uganda offering vaccine and you don't want to go there, people are crying to have vaccines. Not many countries are affording to do what Uganda is doing. I want to thank the president as our commander-in-chief, even in this fight, the Ministry of Health, and everyone who did a good job. Finally, may I thank my own Ministry of Foreign Affairs for the work well done. May I thank the team of State House for having given us the latitude of calling them when we would get stuck.
Okay.
Many countries, when they want their information about their principles, you don't take long. So they allowed us even to call them. The ministers who stayed at the airport, may I say thank you. Minister Ephraim, Professor Kamuntu, Minister Okello Riem, Minister of Public Service, and my own son, Dennis Obua. They slept at the airport for 3 days. I want to thank the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, headed by Dr. Ambassador Nam, and the team of political affairs and diplomacy, who also stayed in there. I cannot say much, but my heart off for you. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Mama Rebecca Mugotengo. You really give it a very good climax, and thanking the team. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Akol Ndugu, Akol Amazima, my own very good brother, Stephen Asimwe. One very good quotation from him is, understanding is not compulsory. You can't force people to understand, because to understand is not really compulsory. You can choose to understand or not to understand. That's what he says. It is not a human right, I think. To understand is not a human right, so you can't claim it as a right. Thank you so much, Ndugu Mtita and Mama Rebecca Mugotengo, Ambassador for gracing our Pan-African Friday today. My name is Jagenda Semakola Ziksoka, thanking all the team that has worked with us to make this a success and a very blessed Friday. Wish you all the best for the weekend and over the weekend. May the good Lord bless all of you, stay with you. I've forgotten my country as we continue inspiring Uganda. Good morning and bye until next week on Friday. Good morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Sponsored by
Cleveland Hill Day and Boarding Primary School. The Lord is my shepherd.
Pick of the day on UBC, brought to you by.
Their job is to keep you and me healthy and well. But sometimes they try in vain.
Was brought to you by.
We've cut and reduced our MTN Momo withdrawal rates. Now you can withdraw mobile money at the lowest rates. You also get